Are you struggling with turnover, bad hires, or just can't seem to find the right people for your family law firm? Our episode breaks down the 8-step hiring process that weeds out poor fits and brings in talent that thrives, saves you money and frustration. Make sure to check it out. I am your host, Tyler Dolph, and I'm the CEO of our hyper-focused agency that works exclusively with family law firms called Rocket Clicks. It was born out of our law firm, which has grown to over 30 attorneys servicing 25 offices across 2 states called Sterling Law. Today, I have the co-founder of Sterling Law and the president of Rocket Clicks, Anthony Carls, with me, along with JP Vanderlinden, who runs our people process and is the expert in our recruiting and HR team. They have come to talk to us about the comprehensive 8-step hiring process that we institute both at our firm and our agency to ensure we're bringing in the right people and putting them in the right seats. These are secrets that you can implement today to improve your hiring process and build a stronger firm. Gents, big day today. We're going to talk about the 8 steps to hiring the right team member for your family law firm. JP, as you currently head up all of our recruiting efforts, I'm happy we brought the expert in today. And of course, we have Tony to help us from all of his experience at Sterling. I think we should start at the top, right? We are thinking about helping family law firms improve their hiring practices. And so what's number one on our list?
Yeah, so this is going to sound obvious, but you need an actual description of the job that you are hiring for. And I want to encourage you, and this is easy for me to say as somebody who sits in a marketing agency, but like hiring is sales. It's just sales to your company instead of as your client. And so you're selling people on coming to work with you, and your job description that you put out, your job post is your advertisement. So you need to think about putting into your job description not just what you do all day, which is true, but boring and not fun and won't sell well. Like you need to put the stuff in there that like get people excited. And so like writing the job description, you need to think about like, why does this role exist and add value to your firm? How does it help and contribute to the mission and vision? How is the opportunity for this person to make an impact going to be felt? What are the opportunities that someone joining in this seat is going to have? And like, think about that kind of stuff in your job description, not just like, I want you to come in, I want you to push the buttons, I want you to push the spreadsheets, I want you to use the phones. Like, why this has to be connected in some larger way, and you want to activate potential hires in that way. So like really think about the job description in that way as like an advertisement for working at your firm, not just a description of what the day-to-day looks like.
I feel like this has really kind of evolved in the last few years and become very important with the number of firms hiring and the opportunity to stand out amongst every other, law firm out there. Tony, did you find that to be the case as well at Sterling? As your
Yeah.
hiring ramped up, the importance
I,
of the job
yeah, I
description.
mean, I think one thing that we did well to begin with, um, compared to the industry, we had really good landing pages for potential prospects. I know Jeff had a video recorded describing what the culture looked like and how it was to work here and what we were trying to do and why we were different and all of those things. Um, and it did what it was supposed to do. It repelled the people that weren't going to be a good fit. It attracted the people that were going to be a good fit, and it set good expectations. And it allowed us to um, do less filtering on the front end, because if you just have a really bland resume, like A, that might reject some good candidates, but B, it might just like get everybody to apply, and now you got to do a lot more sifting. So um, I would say this is super important, whether you're a family law firm or an agency like ours. Like, this is doing this well, doing good marketing and sales for your talent acquisition funnel is so important. And it starts with your offer. What's your landing page? And like, this is your job description, essentially your offer. So I think it's super important.
So we have our job description, JP. What do we do with it?
Well, this is not Field of Dreams. Just because you build it does not mean they will come. You're gonna have to go out and find your talent pool and where you're fishing. And so, depending on the role you're hiring for, you may be using different posting locations. And so, there's the standard, obvious ones like, hey, maybe I want to take this to LinkedIn, maybe I want to go to Indeed, kind of general pools. But then you also want to maybe like start niching down and figure out like where specifically does the audience for maybe your attorneys sit different than your call center reps. Maybe your paralegals are in one area, and your legal assistants are in another. And so like you need to know kind of who you're going after for the role, and that's going to affect where you post those positions. And also how difficult it is, how big a pool you're fishing in. And so the smaller the pool, the more you're going to have to be aggressive with pushing those posts with advertising and social shares versus putting them out there and knowing that's enough to get a bunch of applicants. You're basically always playing this game from an applicant standpoint of playing with the friction, right? And so the smaller your potential market you're pulling from, the less friction you want in the process, because you want as many of them to come through as you can, because you can screen them easier. You have less chance of getting the right person versus those kind of more entry level jobs. Those jobs are a little bit easier to fill where the talent pool is bigger. You probably want to add some friction there. You don't want to make it as easy in those situations. And so you're constantly kind of just dialing in and playing with this, which is again very much like a marketing funnel, like a sales funnel. You're always kind of trying to play with the friction to get just the right amount where you can get great people coming in who match your mission, match your vision, but also don't overwhelm your recruiting team with the volume of applicants you're playing with.
I think the real talk, a little tangent here. Hiring attorneys is super difficult. I know Tony, and I'd love for you to talk about the experience that you've had at Sterling, whether it's finding seasoned attorneys that you now have to develop into your culture and do things maybe dramatically differently than they've done things at other firm versus understanding that you're going to hire someone right out of law school, have them be a law clerk or a paralegal for a while to build up into your culture. Where you post this application is going to play into this whole scenario. So I'd say, and this isn't on our list, but knowing what type of talent you want and the experience of that talent is going to play into where you post.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I think, at Sterling, because we are 100% fixed fee, um, it was a little more challenging to actually hire experienced attorneys because they had been seasoned, especially the longer they've practiced, to practice really well in an hourly practice, which that practice mode is very different than a fixed fee practice mode. So retraining all of those key learnings was somewhat more difficult, which is why we actually do a lot. We still do hire experience, but that's what we're actually looking for. There is a couple years out of law school where they've had a bunch of life experience, where they're not just out of law school for a couple years and that's their first like entry into the professional career. So some of our best performers they went to law school late. They had a job in a professional life prior to that, and they became a lawyer. And now they come to that place with a lot more business experience than just what a lawyer would get from law school. So they come in with some pretty big advantages. So those we still do recruit for out in the marketplace. But most of our talent acquisition actually is funneled from law schools. So we are heavily involved with law schools, and we recruit there. We have law clerks every single year, um, both 2 and 3 Ls, and it's essentially our hiring pipeline. And they not all of them make it into the business as a full-time employee, but you get basically to test drive the car before you buy it, and it's a good thing when you have when the stakes are so high, because like you as the law firm owner, it's ultimately your license on the line for the quality of work. So if you can train someone from the ground up and they can really see you practice, and you got a couple years with them, whether or not you can trust them when you bring them in, and you can bring them in the right way, versus like just bring them in and chuck files at them, which we've done, and like that doesn't go as well. So what I'd say is I think you're 100% right on you got to post where your intention is, because you're going to find different types of talent in different places. Also, the industry is pretty unique where like you can post on normal job boards like LinkedIn and Indeed and stuff like that. But the in some states, so in Illinois, we've had good success on those standard job boards, and not so much on the state bar website where the jobs are listed. It's actually, but in Wisconsin, we've actually had the very opposite experience where most of our good applicants actually came from the state bar. And like, so there's a list of open jobs there, and that's one of the places that we go and recruit from, and it's been very successful there. But it's basically like, what's the local legal community in your state? How do they operate? And understanding that is also important, because you might be in a state like Wisconsin and you're posting on LinkedIn and Indeed and you're like, nothing's working. It's like, well, have you tried the state bar site? Are you really creative with your headlines? Like, that's another thing. Like, we were always cheeky, would be the way I'd say it, with our ad headlines when we posted on the state bar, and it got people's attention because everybody else just posted hiring family law attorney or hiring attorney in so and so, and that's not how we posted it. We typically posted something like, you want to change the world, do stuff different, come work at Sterling, stuff like that, where it's like, oh, okay, like, I'm going to click on this and at least look. Maybe they're crazy, but now I got a real impression instead of just like a boring title job description. So, so I think there's a lot of marketing in this. Bottom line, the other thing I think is important, that is kind of part of our second point here, is a lot of law firms do not optimize their like Glassdoor, their Indeed company profiles, their LinkedIn company profiles, and where it might not be, you might not think it's a disadvantage. The reality is there's other there's other noise there, and if you're not controlling the majority of what's said in that space by fully completing that, you're really letting it up to whatever is generally said there by the marketplace about you, and like, it isn't always positive. Like, not every employee experience that you ever have is going to work. So like, and typically the ones that don't work are the louder ones, not the ones that do work. So if you're not controlling and being intentional with your job boards and your career pages and all of those things, you shouldn't be surprised when it's hard for you to recruit, because you may be missing some big signals in the marketplace that are holding you back.
Hey, family law firm leaders, my partner, Tony Carls, just released his book where he lays bare our precise blueprint for growing Sterling lawyers from 0 to 17 million. This is the blueprint that we still use daily. And Tony explains it in very simple terms. The truth is, this is not simple to do. Success requires and demands hard work, but if you have the patience and the work ethic to do it, your family law firm will succeed.
Yeah, I think it's really important that law firm owners have a very clear understanding of who they're trying to hire, and then curating everything around that, right? All of these steps have to be tailored towards that kind of perfect person and role type, and then you can better target that person in the marketplace. So JP is we've put our job description out there. We've gotten some good applicants in. Our number three kind of step here is to run them through kind of a culture screen, and lovingly call this the no asshole rule. But tell us a little bit about what we do here and at Sterling.
Yeah, so I think one of the things with the culture interview is that you need to design it in such a way that it's led by your recruiting team. It's not pulling in your subject matter experts. This is not about can they do the work. This is about how they're going to enhance what you're building culturally. And so, this needs to be designed in such a way that, the questions and the prompts are set up to say, like, who is this person? And so here's the reality, right? Interviews, they're like dating. Everyone puts their best foot forward. They show up with their teeth cleaned and a nice suit with their hair done. And you're trying to figure out, like, did they leave the toothpaste by the side of the sink with the cap open? Like, are the wet socks on the floor? Like, you want to figure this stuff out before you get too far down the road. And so There's a little bit of training for the recruiters leading this, and there's a lot of intentionality on the questions. And so our questions are intentionally designed to be long form answer, so they're not yes or no, and they're not obvious answers. Like, the questions that are like, how do you feel about working weekends or whatever? Like, they're too obvious what you're looking for. You want to like have somebody open up about who they are as a person. And so it's like, what's something really difficult that you've been through in your life, and like, how did you manage that moment? I think Tony actually turned me on to this one. It's like, what was the last professional development or self improvement book that you read, and would you recommend it? And so, like, these are very open ended questions. You're going to find out if the person can share, and you're also going to learn a little bit about them because there's not an obvious answer that they're going to give. And so, anybody who's trying to like play the game or fish the system or whatever is like, they're going to kind of get stuck on these. And so you tend to get a little more of an honest answer on those. But this one's all about just understanding, like, is this person going to be someone who makes your environment better? That's all you're looking for here. And so very much it's like, I want someone on this call from a screening standpoint who's really good at feeling and reading people. I don't even care if they're good at the work. I just want to know, it's like, is this person going to put off a good vibe? Like, are they going to make the place better when they come in? Or are they going to be like an energy suck, an energy vampire, and they're just going to like pull everybody down, and they're going to bring, are they blaming everyone else in their life for all their problems? Like, whatever is important to your firm's culture, like, this is where you root it out, because you don't want to pull your subject matter experts in and waste a bunch of their time for somebody who's, going to be a net negative on day one.
Yeah.
Love it. Yep, 100% agree. What's next, JP?
Yeah. So part of the process, and we kind of jump to the culture screen. There are a couple of steps that we hit before we actually get to the culture interview that, again, this is part of that like play with the friction piece. So like, obviously you want to look at their application, you want to look at their resume, make sure they have the qualified skills, whatever the hard skills are, things that you require. One thing we do recommend is doing some sort of behavioral assessment prior to the culture interview. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, you should have kind of a profile of what somebody who's successful in this role looks like, not on like personality, because you can be successful in a lot of roles with different personalities, but like, what behaviors do they typically exhibit, and find some sort of like test that can tell you, like, directionally, is this going to be the right person? If this is somebody who's going to spend 8 hours a day on the phones with clients, hiring introverts probably not going to work great. They're going to get super burned out with it. Not to say they can't do a good job, but they're going to get totally run down from a social battery standpoint. Like, find somebody who gets energized by those things.
And it's going to give you the right type of context when you're asking questions in the operational interview or culture interview, because now you're like, oh, okay, this is an introvert, this is extroverted, this is really an extroverted type role. Tell me about how you recharge your battery if you have to be social all the time. Like, how does that work? That's why you do it. And if they're like, well, I don't know, I don't really think about that, you're probably like, this might not be a good fit for you, because like, you're literally going to be on the phone for 8 hours every day, probably going to drain you, and then you're going to tell me a bunch of things about how you don't like your role, when it was just a bad fit based on your tendencies.
Another piece of that too is like, just by sending the question, the application, this should be asynchronous, by the way. Like, you send them a link and they fill something out. And like, it's literally test number one, especially for these roles that are like, there's a big pool. It's like, can you follow instructions? Do you actually want this job? Or you just spray and pray and hitting 100 applications and hoping something lands this week? Like, do you have follow through? Do I send it to you and I get it back 20 minutes later? Or do I get it back 2-3 days later? And so there's like a level to just like, you can kick people out. I think last time I checked, we had like 27% of people like just get kicked out on that. Like, they applied, they get this within 2 days. If they don't follow up within 2 days after that, they're out. And so it's amazing how many people just won't click the link and do the thing. And so you get that, and then you get the insight, which, to Tony's point, really helps fuel that culture interview, with like, what do we need to poke at and prod at to like really understand who this person is.
Yeah, and that first screening point really helps the, whoever it is, if it's you, or if you have if someone helping you from an HR perspective, if there's 200 applicants for an intake role and only 27% of them fill out the first test, which is the behavioral assessment, now you only have to screen 50 resumes. So, it's different than screening 200 resumes. That's a lot of time. So, I think some of these things are like strategically put in place for operational efficiency, as well as like, how can we strategically position ourselves to ask good questions later on in the process.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so important to make sure that that culture fit is first, because the worst thing that could happen is you hire someone who's extremely intelligent and maybe a go-getter, but terrible from a culture standpoint, and they're pushing other people out of your firm. And so that's why we recommend doing culture interview first. But after that, we have what we call our operational interview, right, JP?
Yeah. And so this is where it's like, this is if you were hiring a developer, this is where you'd have them to write code. If you're hiring a salesperson, this is where you have them like handle objections. This is the place you actually see them do the work they're going to be doing in a real live fire environment. Because some people have really ugly resumes and beautiful work. And the opposite is also true. And like some people are just really good at interviewing, right? Because interviewing is kind of sales. Like maybe they're just a really good salesperson, and then you get them in the work, and they're like, oh my god! Like I will tell you a horror story. Like I really early on in my career, I hired a media buyer for Facebook ads, and I got him in. I was super excited about him. And like day two, I sent him a customer file of all their addresses. I said, hey, I need you to upload this to the back end of Facebook so we can make a match list. It's an Excel file. He goes, oh yeah, I don't do Excel. I don't know. Like I never screened for it. It was totally my fault. I never asked, but like I just assumed, oh, you're in the seat. You probably know how to do the thing, but I never tested for it. If I had put him in any kind of live fire incident, that would have come up right away. And it was a non-negotiable. Like you had to be able to do it. I now had to back up. I had a junior person in a senior seat from a skill standpoint. I had to figure out how to do all that. And so like that's what the operational interview is for. It's like it should be, you should watch them do the work. It should be intentionally, I like to set this up as an impossible task. Give them something that you give them 20 minutes to do it, and it's a 45-minute task, and see what they do. Like, does their perfectionism come out? Do they argue with you? Do they get flustered under pressure? Do they prioritize the right things given a limited time constraint? Right? It's not about can they do the work perfectly. It's like who are you hiring and what are they going to do? Because guess what? They're going to get on a client call and they're going to get an angry customer, right? They're going to get into a situation where they have too much work to do and not enough time. They're not gonna be able to do everything perfectly. So like you're trying to get a sense of like what are they going to be in the reality of your world and how are they going to handle it? And if they do fine here, they're probably going to do fine there.
Great point. You see the same thing, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is as we've implemented this, I feel like the quality of our hiring has just continued to go up. We've dialed in our culture interview. We're getting less operational interviews where they're not a good use of time, and then those operational interviews, they like really weed this thing down so that our last interview step is not overly consuming high level resources. And I think the operational interview like really shows you how they're going to operate under stress. Like that's really the whole point. Is like give them a semi impossible task. So it should be somewhat achievable. Like if they're a really, really, really good player, like they'll probably be able to do it. But give them something that's hard in a constrained timeline so that you can see how they operate under stress. And like what questions do they ask? How do they think about preparing? Like how do they formulate a solution for this in real time with you versus giving them a setup where you're then going to say, here's the problem, come back to me in 2 days and how you would solve it. It's like, okay, you get that maybe 60% of the time in your work, 40% of the time you're not going to get it. What happens there? So I think an operational interview is a really, really key opportunity to vet talent in a pretty intense way.
I know this has evolved over a number of years, and we used to just have those two interviews, but then we were missing kind of this last opportunity where the leadership team or the ownership team could have a say, could have a feel, knowing that the other boxes are checked, right? Like, okay, they're good culture fit, they're good, they can do the role. Let's make sure that we have a gut check opportunity, which is what we call our values interview, right, JP?
Yeah, and so up until you're probably, I don't know, you're probably somewhere between 150 and 200 people. Your leadership team has got to be involved in protecting your culture in the interview process. And so if you're the business owner, the business leader, if you're the person who's sitting at the top, then like the buck stops with you and anybody who gets hired in. And so this is a great way for us to just get a gut check to say like, hey, you've passed the other steps, so we're assuming you can do the work and you got the minimum viables. But now, like, we really want to understand who we're bringing in. Like, is this person good enough? Are they really exciting? Are they going to make things better? Do we see opportunities? It's also a chance to give feedback to everyone who's passing through to this point, and improve your process. So just because you kick somebody out here doesn't mean you failed. It actually gives you another data point to feature in. So the way we handle this is we give an assignment ahead of time. So unlike the operational interview where we kind of spring an assignment on you and don't give you the chance to prepare because we want to see you under pressure, this one we want to see you prepare. So we give the assignment in advance and enough time for them to show up, and then we give them a time limited presentation. We give them all the prompts and such. And so this tells us like, okay, the first time we wanted to see what happened when you had no time to prep. This time you do. Does your work look different? Do you show up different? Do you take it seriously? We've had people just show up and wing it at this thing, like, "I'm just gonna talk for 5 minutes." It's like, that's not great." And we've had people prepare full-blown 35 slide decks, and then they can't get through them in 5 minutes. They don't think about it, right? And so it's like there you get this whole range there, and that gives you one kinda data point, uh, and then the rest, it's about 20 minutes, is just free form, open Q&A from our leadership team, and I gotta tell you guys, I like our questions. I feel like we've got some really good ones in there, and they're not like the Google, like, how many, mothballs are there in the whole world or whatever, like weird questions. But like, they're intentional, but they're you can't prepare for them. And so there's just again that some level of like you're trying to really get the person to be real and open up here. And so, you can drill into something. Like if you see something, you can chase it and really push on it. Like I personally have a list of about 5 or 6 questions I like to ask. And a lot of mine are about like how well do they understand how this role that they're joining the company in contributes to the success of the business? Do they really get it, or do they just see like their little box? And like how far in the future are they thinking? Is this just like a means to an end? They want to show up and collect a paycheck, or like are they excited about something in the future that like their vision can fit inside the vision of what we're doing? And so again, like this took some like our first couple, they were rough. There were these awkward like 14, 15-second silences of all just like looking at each other like, do you have a question? I don't have a question. Do I have it? So like again, prepare for these a little bit, but we've gotten better at them over time. And now they're a lot of fun, and they tell us a lot about the team member and kind of who's joining. And at the very least, they give that person exposure to the leadership of the company. And so when they come in on day one and we're doing onboarding and they're meeting people, like, oh yeah, I saw you in my final interview. Like even if they're not in their department, even if they had something else up, like it just gives them a chance of exposure. So that's really cool too.
Yeah, I think I'll end with this has been an evolution for both our agency and our law firm, and it probably sounds overwhelming if you're a law firm owner and you're like, wait, I got to do 3 different interviews and a custom job description, all the things, and my only recommendation or advice there is that it has really allowed our level of hire to continue to raise the bar at both our firm and our agency. Every new hire is better than the last because we've put together such a rigid process as it relates to what we really care about and how we can create the culture and the talent pool that we want in order to take our business forward. So I think
Yeah,
Tony, you felt the same way.
yeah, I would agree. I think in a prior podcast we talk about kind of 3 different pools of team members, kind of your A players, and that's going to potentially be like 10 to 15 to 20%. They're going to be successful no matter what. And then you got your kind of your B players who are going to be about 60% of your 60% of the workforce. Like they're going to be successful if you set them up well. And then there's 20% that are probably not going to work out, So, and that's going to vary a little bit. But the reality is as we've dialed in this process for us, like I can confidently say since we've got this dialed in, I don't think we've hired any problems. And like where there have been problems in hiring, it's because our operational interview wasn't good. Because they're not culture fits. They haven't not been impressive from a core values and uh, who they are as a person perspective. But as we really nailed down the operational interview, now we knew like, oh, they're also really good technically. And like, they're not just a good salesperson, because like a good salesperson can sell you in an interview. That's what their job is. Um, so yeah, I would say the quality of your hiring drastically improves as you get this dialed in.
One frame to think about with this is you're trying to find the smallest gap that you have to close. And typically, it's much harder to close a culture gap than a skills gap. There are maybe a few scenarios where that's not true. You're trying to hire a CFO, to lead mergers and acquisitions for a 25 to $50 million firm. Like, okay, that's a pretty specific skill set. You might have to hire somebody who's kind of a jerk sometimes and teach them not to be a jerk. But like for most of us, it's much easier to find somebody who aligns on the culture, aligns on the mission and vision, lives out our values, and teach them how we execute the work, treat clients, things like that. So you're looking for like, what's the small gap that I can close and hire that person? So to Tony's point, like hire somebody who's a great culture fit and figure out they stink at the operations. And it's like, all right, it's going to take me 6 months to get you where you need to be. But like I found the right person. That's a place worth investing.
Great point. Love it. Gentlemen, this is so helpful. I'm excited to continue down this path and appreciate all of our listeners being with us today. If you enjoyed this episode on our 8-step hiring process, you will love our next episode on developing your company values. It's so important that you are expanding your firm and developing a culture that matters, and hiring is an essential piece. Make sure to check that episode out here.